Well, welcome back to Bringing Hope and Freedom. This is part 2 of our conversation on marriage. We've got special guest Sabrina Carey in the house. And we really liked the first conversation that we had on marriage. We just thought we were bringing up some really good content. Again, if you've got any questions about marriage, relationships, we'd love for you to send those in. You can email us at info@alm.tv. You can leave a comment on YouTube or Facebook, wherever the podcast is. We'd love to hear from you. And so we left off with Matt just talking about the example that you had in your life from your father and your mom and how they modeled problem solving and working through problems.
Yeah, I mean, my parents shared duties around the house. It wasn't like Mom was in charge of always cooking dinner and, doing the bills, and Dad just went to work. Growing up, my mom didn't work when my brother and I were younger. And then eventually, she did go to work as we were older, and I want to say in high school. And then, they both worked. And I got to see the whole dynamic of, the mom not working, the dad working, the extra time. And my dad was like you. He was either at work or at the ball fields with my brother and I, or at home. Those were the 3 places he was. My mom never had to worry about that. And, I think that set a great example for myself to be able to see that going on. My dad doesn't drink, so he wasn't at the bar. He's, wasn't out with, he'd go with hang out with the guys and watch a game or something, but there was never, that type of stuff going on that we were always wondering where Dad was. He was always out working to help us out.
And Matt, you guys talked about your relationship and some of the things that you guys have been able to work through. And I would suggest to you that one of the reasons why you guys have been able to have a healthy marriage is because you had some healthy examples growing up about what it means to be dependent on one another. Yeah. Right. A healthy marriage is built on interdependency, the reality that we need one another and serve one another and help one another, not the reality that one exists to serve the other in some capacity. Mm-hmm. I think a healthy marriage could be understood as a game about submission. Who can submit and humble themselves more? Who can serve one another more? And in that dynamic, you have not just a healthy relationship in a marriage context, but you have a healthy relationship in anything. You'll be a great employee, you'll be a great friend. If you're always trying to serve and sacrifice for the benefit of those around you, you will create healthy relationships. It's the basis of healthy relationships. One of the things that I noticed in my life growing up with my parents is their spirituality, their faith was lived out in front of me for everything. They were really committed to God. They were not perfect people. And we had a huge family, 9 kids. It's a lot of kids. A lot of responsibility. And my father was a pastor. But my dad wasn't just a pastor on Sunday morning. My dad was a disciple of Jesus Christ Monday through Sunday. My mom lived out her faith. My mom prayed about everything all the time. I mean, you got to pray about everything all the time. You got 9 kids. And that really stuck with me in their relationship. They hosted people even though they had 9 kids. They were invested in serving other people even though they had other responsibilities. And so I saw a faith lived out in the context of their marriage. And I think looking back on it now, I recognize that why could I say to Sabrina, hey, pray about it? Why do I pray about it? Where does that come from? It's come from some of the examples that I had in my parents. And it's been probably the most important example in my life of pray about something before you do it. And ask God for direction in your life, and He will give it to you. And that's, I think, fundamentally why we're together, but we're also happy in our marriage, and we're trying to pass that down into our kids. What do you think?
Similar to you with the spirituality, examples are so important as you're raising kids, but also for getting into a marriage too. And my parents, we were in church from the time I was born. I remember just being in church, maybe not from the time I was born, but at least from when I can remember at 7 years old and older when I gave my heart to the Lord. But my parents actually ended up getting divorced, and so that was really tough to walk through. And I do remember, my dad was a very dominating personality. So I remember my mom, she didn't quite have a party. We talked about in the last episode, she didn't quite have a party when they got divorced, but she felt this newfound freedom. And I remember being so young and thinking why did she feel so captive? But one of the things that really stuck out to me was that my dad was very intentional when he was trying to show me the example of what a man should look like that I'm looking for. He used to take me on father-daughter dates all the time, just me and him, and he would kind of set the tone as if we were on a date, like, what are the things that you could talk about? And then he would share with me, like, what are your expectations? And I remember writing my top 10 things, and he kind of helped guide that conversation when I was young, but as I got older.
Turned into top 26 things.
As I got older, I created those things, and maybe I added more to my list, but I thought that was so sweet. My dad really showed me what I should be looking for. So as I got old enough to start dating, there wasn't a question in my mind, like, this is the guy I want, to the point where when I met Kirk, I'm like checking out, okay, like, is he meaning these things? And some of them were really silly, it was like, is a surfer, or like, it's just like things that I was hopeful for. But the core things was like, undoubtedly had to, be a follower of Jesus Christ, had to be somebody who, had a good sense of finances, had to come from a great family, because my family was so broken. I wanted to step into a family that I knew we'd be spending holidays and things together. Like, his family really kind of repaired some of that brokenness that I felt, because, they had family gatherings together. They weren't jumping from...
Dinner was a giant family gathering.
But it wasn't jumping from mom's house to dad's house to aunt's house. Like some of my holidays growing up, we went to like tons of different people's house. It wasn't all together. And so, I had my list, and he really like met almost all of them, and that's when I like knew, hey,
this was a long list, guys, okay? I mean, I'm just joking.
No, but my dad really shared that, and really showed me that, and I really valued that from him. And he really set that example too. He really tried to live his life serving the Lord, and so I watched him do that. He wasn't a minister, but he basically should have been, because we were at every church function. He's
probably more committed than the pastor.
Yeah, he was. He served at both services. He was a great volunteer. He was always, doing discipleship in our house. I remember there'd always be people at our house. If he saw a homeless person on the road, he was always giving. He set that example for us. And he really tried to be that spiritual leader. So that was, something. What about you, Holly?
My examples are slightly different than that. So as I had mentioned, my biological parents are divorced. So I think I was about 12 when that happened, and my father was an alcoholic, so that marriage wasn't great from the start. But then my mom remarried, and my stepfather who's a great guy. And what I saw from that example was that he loves her, he treats her with respect. He would do anything for her, and they don't go to church regularly, so God wasn't really in the mix. At least I didn't see it, but still love each other, best friends, all that. And then I guess it wasn't really until I met Matt. We were pretty young, 19, I think. Yeah. And then going to his family's gatherings, because again, like you, divorced, so you were everywhere at Christmas and the holidays. So when I saw how his family is, and going to church, and that really set an example, I think, for me at that point. You should share what your grandma said for 2 weeks.
So growing up, I lived next door to my dad's parents. Lived right next door to us, and
love that.
Can be good. You're not getting away with anything as a kid.
Yeah, no, you won't.
Mom and dad can be gone, but grandparents are watching. I started dating Hall, and we started dating in college, and we were dating week, maybe 2 weeks, and my dad's parents were always going to church, and I walked over to my grandparents' house like I always did, and I said, "Hey, Nani, I started seeing somebody." She goes, "Yeah, I know."
Oh.
I said, "Oh, okay." She goes, "Yeah, you're gonna marry her."
Oh.
I said, I was like, no.
Oh my God.
We just started dating. She's like, "No, God told me." And I got up, I walked out of the house. That was the last conversation I had with her about all. I was like, I'm done, not doing it,
1-2 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Praying grandmas, man.
Yeah.
They're the source of all the good stuff and all the problems.
Yeah. But she told me that. I was like, all right, I'm out. Like, I'm just dating this girl.
Yeah.
We're just
Yeah.
having
You're
fun.
like 19. Yeah.
I'm 19. It's
Yeah.
not even a thought in my mind.
But it seems like Matt, in your guys' relationship, kind of regardless of some of the pain or some of the imperfection, the modeling that you had from your home and the modeling that your parents had from their parents played a huge role in your life.
Yeah, I mean, my parents struggled at times financially, and like I always knew that like Dad was working hard. I wanted to play baseball, I wanted to play basketball. Like Dad always was able to provide my next glove or provide a new basketball. Always got me into sports that we wanted to play. Same thing with my brother.
Now he's a pickleball enthusiast, by the way.
Yeah. Because I'm old and I live in Florida. Don't worry, you'll be there soon.
Hey, I live in Florida, but I don't.
We like pickleball.
Yeah.
But it's seeing those things. Seeing my dad work hard. When 9/11 happened, I lost my job, and for me, that was very hard because I wasn't able to provide at the house. There was, I would wake up, make a pot of coffee, sit in front of the computer, and apply for jobs. And she's getting up and going to work, and
That was a rough period for us. That was tough.
we just bought a house. We had 2 cars at the time, so you got 2 car payments, a house. We had a dog, and
Dog.
I had to stick it in there.
Yeah.
But me sitting at home, not able to work, that really bothered me a lot. And when we moved here to Florida, I quit my job. I didn't have a job till the week before we moved into our house that we have. So those were 2 like times for us that in the beginning of your marriage, not having the income like we discussed, you're counting on that.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially when you buy the house and all that. And for me, I didn't want my parents or her parents helping out. I didn't want anything from anybody because in my mind that was my responsibility, and if I can't provide for her, then I'm not a good husband.
You said that was in 9/11?
9/11 when right after there, lots of the company I worked for, we relied on everyday people to buy into the company, do stuff, and like it wasn't there. I mean, like when we were dating, we dated and we used to spend weekends together because we lived so far apart. Yeah. And I would go and up to her place, and we would talk about like, she had a job. I was working as like a lifeguard and a swimming coach, and I'm still in college. And I would come up and she's like, hey, do you want to go to dinner? And I'm like, we don't have any money. Sometimes it would be, we'd have the conversation of, is it a loaf of bread and some peanut butter to get us through the week, or do we, buy a pizza and have a slice for each meal?
It's just interesting. I was listening to a relationship psychologist. The number one thing that women look for in a mate, do you know what it is? Their future income potential, not their current. So it's not that they have money when they meet them. It's that, do they have the attributes of hard work, of responsibility? Do they care about it? And can they tell that there's a potential for something in the future? So I just want to share with you that even though maybe all the money wasn't there, all the necessary attributes of hard work, of care, they were there, and she saw it.
Yeah.
She saw it, and so I want to encourage that for maybe young men or young couples, young men, guys specifically. What are women looking for? They don't necessarily need you to have everything worked out right now. That's not what they want. They don't need you to be perfect. You don't have to have all the money in the world. They're looking at, does this man have the character? Will they work hard? Are they going in the right direction? Right. Can they build? They're looking at the future of what their life is going to look like, ladies.
I would agree. And the way that you're treating them, not just like in the early stages of when everyone is excited, but as you're dating for longer periods of time, because we dated for like a year and then we're engaged for a year. It sounds like you guys were dating for a while before you got married. And it was like, as time went on, you know, like, how was he treating me? Was he still being kind and caring and loving? And then what were the conversations like? That was what I tuned into the most, is like, you know, was he talking about just things that he wanted? Or was he talking about future goals that we could have? One of the main conversations we would have is like, what does God put on your heart to do in this world? What irks you inside? And as we talked about it more and more, everything was lining up. And I was like, you know what, even if we have nothing, we're going to be doing what we feel like God is calling us to do. We wanted to work with, you know, just people in general. I was going to be a teacher at the time, but the biggest thing was like, we wanted to start a school, we wanted to be a part of a ministry, we wanted to build orphanages, we wanted to, you know, I had this vision of just all these children running in the grass, and you know, not like necessarily our children, but just being around, which is like the camps that we were doing.
She had the vision of children running and me taking care of them.
But it was, you know, that's what I tuned into, was like, were we talking, what was the conversations like? What were we talking about? Was it like the car he wanted in the future, or the house, or like all these objects, all these things?
Does he push you to be a better person?
Yes.
Or is that person holding you back from trying to, you know?
And that was when that's a good point. That was when I knew, oh, this is going to be the guy for me, because the guy I dated previously in high school,
loser.
he wasn't like, it was just all about him. It was like, well, I don't want you to go to college, because he wasn't going to go away to college, you know, at first. But as I, you know, got to know Kirk, he was like, he was getting ready to graduate, but he wasn't like, well, I want you to stop college and move up to Maryland with me. It was like, you need to pray about it. What is God calling you to do? You know, everything was like, what is God calling you to do? What does he want? And he put that in my boat. And I was like, wow, I love this. Like, he's really tuned into, what does God want for my life right now? Because we're not married, so I don't have to like totally submit to everything that he's asking me to do.
But but that comes from a value system that I think God wants us to have, which is, you're not mine, you're his.
Right.
And I'm a caretaker of something that ultimately belongs to God. So I want his will for your life. And that's hard, because that means you have to submit your will, because I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't want her by my side. I wanted her with me. I wanted her next to me. I knew that if I went to Maryland, she was going to go to Florida. But it's her life, and she's got to make the choices. And I just want to continue to encourage young men on this. Like, you need to recognize that she doesn't want you to be perfect, but she needs to see that you're going somewhere in life, and that you have the commitment to do that. And the next thing is that women don't need you to tell them what to do. They need your help in guiding them to what they ultimately are looking for. And there's a difference between the two things. And I think too often young men that are insecure, they're insecure because they lack confidence in themselves, and they lack confidence in themselves because they don't have a relationship with God. They need to get a relationship with God, and that's going to bring them confidence. And then through that confidence, you're going to be able to let go of your insecurities. Because believe me, I thought, hey, she could go meet another guy. There's all these things that could happen. But if I love her, that means I should want God's will for her life, not my will for her life. And I should guide her through that process.
And I don't know if every woman is the same, but for me, that pushed me. I was like, oh man, like, I love this guy.
I like this guy.
Yeah. He's like, because he trusts me. He trusts me that, like.
Well, and I want you to be able to choose me.
Right, exactly.
And I want to be able to choose you. That's the basis of love. It's like, I don't want to control that.
You have to have like the conversation throughout dating each other of what your goals are.
Right.
Yeah.
Not just for yourself, but for you guys together. You know, like, I'm someone who, you know, didn't want to move up to where she lived, but, you know, like, she had the job. I was in college, and it was like, you know, she's working. I'm like, you know, we didn't want kids. If she would have said to me, you know, hey, I want 5, 10, 9 kids, you know, I would have been, you know, I don't think that we would have gotten married. You know, I mean, in my mind, I was set that I didn't want kids. You know, that just was a thing for me. And, you know, if she would have been like, you know, I loved her, I was in love with her, but if she would have been like, hey, this is, the deal breaker. I want, I don't know that.
My parents joke about that because when I was younger, I don't know, maybe like 12, 13, 14, I think I wanted to be a babysitter or something, to do with kids or something. And so it's a joke in the family now. Like, you don't even have kids and you wanted to be a babysitter. It's like, I was 12.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything.
What do I know? I was 12. Yeah, well, the future goals are really important, and you don't want to brush those aside. You don't want to brush those aside. And I think too many people brush their responsibility aside. Too many people brush the red flags of argument and a lack of connection aside. Too many people then brush the future goals and where their life going. You can't have someone that says, I want to live in Pittsburgh and be a teacher, necessarily get along with someone who says, I want to move to Africa and do whatever. Because, okay, those are going in different directions. And if you don't come together and decide on where the family's going to go, there's going to be problems. And again, I relate it back to the Bible where the two flesh become one.
Yeah.
I felt that if I wasn't willing to let go of my way so that she could find the path, then we were never going to come together in our life and ultimately do what God was calling us to do. And I needed to model that, and I think it's important that you do model that. So there has to be a submission of the individual wills, and those wills need to be submitted to ultimately what God is asking for you to do in your life. And I think people would find that if they did that, they are going to have an amazing life together. But they lack the willingness to submit their own individual wills to create this new life. And that's what you're doing when you're having those conversations. There's a submission of your individual will so that you can choose something that's better. And so physically the two become one, but practically the two become one, and then spiritually the two become one. And that's the mystery of marriage, and that's why marriage is a reflection of the relationship that we have with God, is we submit our will, taking on the will of our Heavenly Father, and create this new life. So our old life goes away, and our new life is developed.
And if you're truly like submitting to the Lord together, He really, and I've seen it in our marriage, like He fills in the gaps. Like you're never like, you're never losing something. It's only like gaining.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot just together about Acts. Like I reflect back on, the early church and how like, I think so many people are afraid of change. That's why it's like, well, no, I need to stay here, or I can't go there, or whatever. But those individuals that were choosing to follow like the Christ's example, and they were willing to just let go of everything that they had, their houses, all the money they had, their possessions, sell everything and follow me. It's kind of similar, like when you're thinking about joining together, if you're walking with the Lord, it's like, Lord, whatever you want from us.
Right.
Because if you're genuinely walking that way by yourself, when you become one, you should be a force to be reckoned with.
Right, exactly.
It's
And you will become a force.
Right.
You will be. If you do that, I think that God will transform everything about the relationship. So I think you're 100% right in that. I think that's a really good...
He said she was 100% right. Did you hear that?
Yeah, well...
He says that a lot. That's why I'm not.
Oh, he does?
No, I'm joking. Actually, at the beginning of our marriage, if we want to derail for a second, when we first got married, because I'm sure you guys experience it too. You're just living your life by yourself for a while. You're choosing the things you want. You get to make your own decisions. And for some people, when you get married, that's hard to like let go of. You want to continue to still kind of control or really control. And women and men, I can be a very controlling personality at times.
Thank you for saying that.
I admit that.
Yeah. And Kirk can too. Like he has that domineering, he wants to go forward. I know that, probably a lot of people have seen that just inside the church, like, let's do it, let's go.
Yeah.
Where are we waiting? Like, why are we waiting? And it's such a good thing. But I remember at the beginning of our marriage when, I was kind of struggling sometimes, I said to him, like, I feel like you're not taking what I'm saying into consideration. It's just like, nope, that's not going to work. That's not going to work.
Oh, I know what you're going to talk about.
And I was like, okay, well, but why can't we just pause for a second and I can give another view. I'm going to give another viewpoint here. I'm going to, and what's the hurt in trying for it? If it's not going to hurt anything, let's just try another way. And we have the perfect analogy now. Whenever we get into,
I love that this is a we thing.
So we were getting this. My grandmother had, she had a lot of things, and she had given this chest that was in my aunt's like storage unit, and I loved it. It was like this cool wooden old chest from France, and we only had this little Honda Civic at the time.
Two-door Honda Civic. Two-door Honda Civic coupe.
And he was like,
and we had to go to the storage unit, and we had to get this.
Yes, because I was like, this will look really cool in our first, little apartment or house or wherever we were at. And I was like, I really want to get this. So we get there.
This is a giant chest. So everybody knows.
Yeah, I mean, it was decent size.
Huge.
Like you could. I wanted to use it for some things, and anyway, so it was very rustic at the time. And so he's like, why are we getting this old scrappy thing?
Dumb.
But I was like, let's just try. And so he's like, no, it's not going to fit. Not going to fit at all. We have a 2-seater car, Sabrina. We have a 2-seater car. He attempted to like put it in, and he showed me how it's not going to fit, right? So then he was like, it's not going to fit. Let's just go. And he was very adamant about going. And I just like tried to be loving in that situation. And I was like, can we just try? And he's like, nope, it's not going to work. So he like walked away. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give it a go. Like maybe I won't be submissive in this moment because like, let's just give it a chance. So I was like visualizing. I turned it to the side and slid it right in. And then, and I pulled the seat back, and I was like, you didn't even have to give any effort there. Can you just drive us back?
No.
But it was
your version.
Yeah.
No, I was like, oh man.
No, he uses that analogy a lot now too, because at that time, and we grew from that. It was from that moment on, I think the Lord used that moment. We didn't even end up keeping the chest very long, but he ended up using that moment to just kind of soften Kirk's heart in that, like, no, it's not going to work. We're not going to try any other way. To, hey, okay, I'm married now. If she has a good idea, let's just try it if it's not going to hurt anything.
Well, and she has a different way. I can sometimes predetermine because I'm such a driving personality. Yeah. Because I do see solutions to things, and I want to move quickly. If I feel like it's going to take me too much time to try to figure this out, and I'm like, why am I even doing this? It's a waste of time. Yeah. We don't even need this chest. You're going to change your mind 4 months from now, and I'm going to be moving it again. And so I'm just looking at those things. I'm thinking, this is just not practical. Why would I waste time with this? And I can predetermine my action in that way. And especially when I was younger. I feel like now I'm a little bit different.
I was like early 20s, because we got married young too. I was 20.
But it was important for me because I have to realize her strengths too. And a healthy relationships relies on each other's strengths. Yeah. Right? It doesn't just bicker and argue about the weaknesses. It relies on each other's strengths. And I had to learn my wife's strengths, and I was still learning her strengths, and I was still becoming okay with my weaknesses as a man, which is, I think men sometimes struggle with those insecurities. We're not great at everything. And so I need to rely on her strengths and not try to be insecure about my weaknesses. And she was right. There was a different way of doing it. And actually in our relationship, that little box, that little chest, has become a really important analogy in our lives. And I come back to that with all kinds of things that I'm like, no, Kirk, remember that. She has a different way of doing this, and it's probably gonna work. And so it's humbled me a lot in our relationship to rely on her, because she has different strengths than I do, and she sees things, and I'm like, that's the dumbest. In my mind, I'm like, that's so dumb, or that's never gonna work.
Well, Matt would actually say it out loud.
Oh, I say it out loud. I say, like, that's dumb. So dumb. I don't know how this is gonna work. But I'm also just an external processor, so she's not taking it offensively, because I'm like, I don't think that's dumb. I don't know how we're gonna do that, how it's gonna work. But I'm like, okay, and then she knows, like, I'm just like, just do it. Because in the back of my mind, I'm telling myself, she's probably right. Just do it. Because I can't see the things that she can see. She sees things differently than I do. And then, like, she'll do,
what analogy are you sharing now?
She'll do something that I just think is the dumbest thing. And then everybody who sees it, they're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing I've ever best date of my life. And the whole time I'm like, whatever.
Oh, I hate
Because we
that.
think
It's like,
differently.
no,
Yeah,
you don't think it's great.
No.
You're just saying that because she wanted it.
No, man, I'm telling you, they're just not predetermined at all. For them, their responses, she'll look at something and decorative or creatively or whatever, and I hate it.
Well, I like to make a lot of gifts for people.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, sometimes in the beginning when I was making these different things, he sometimes would be like, I don't know if they're going to like that. Like, that's interesting. And then they would really love it because it was, like, sentimental. And I try to pay attention, even with him, I try to pay attention to, like, the little things that people say. Like, what do they like? Whatever. You know, and so I've made some really creative gifts for him that have surprised him.
Yeah.
But I do.
She does things for people that I would never think about doing.
But
and when she's doing them, I'm like, what is
he's
this?
learned, like, now it's second nature, where even if I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? He's like, just trust
do
your
it.
gut.
Just
You know,
do whatever
like,
you want to do. They're
trust
gonna
the
love.
Lord,
They're
like-
all. Everyone's gonna cry. They're taking pictures. They're gonna send it to their
Whatever you
family
think.
members. They're gonna post it on
love it.
Facebook. Like, I already know now. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you asking me for? Do it, because you're very intentional and you're very caring.
But you learn that
Absolutely.
through these processes. Like, you
Right.
know, the more you're married, I'm sure you guys have realized
the longer
that too.
you're married, the more you
Yeah.
value
each other. Yeah, and connect with each other and know those things.
She's very big on like cards for every occasion.
Yeah.
And not
Every-
just to like
every-
each other, but to like other people as well. And
Like Red Sock Day. You right?
Yeah.
like
Just because.
Yeah, just
she, you know, she get me a card, I get her a card, that type of stuff. But over time, I was like, to me, I'm like, this is really dumb. Like, I don't need a card for this.
That really hurt my
But
feelings.
but then like
Not now. I mean,
Yeah,
before
yeah,
we
yeah.
said it.
Yeah.
then I realized, like, one day she pulls out this box and she's like, hey, look, this is like the first card you ever got me. This is like the first rose you got me. And like now it's a huge Tupperware container that's in my garage
Yeah.
that like weighs 600 pounds. But like in the beginning, you know, like I didn't appreciate it. I just was like, you know, all right, we could have saved $5 on this card. Nowadays they're like $10, but I'm like, why are we doing this? But then now I'm like, oh, you know, like her birthday's coming. I got to go get her a card. Like the anniversary's coming. Go get a card. Do these things. Because I know that she likes it, even though it's not, you know, the biggest thing to me. But now, like, when I get the card, though, I'm like, oh, like, she spent time picking this out. Like, I appreciate it, you know.
Yeah. We had something similar actually when we did long distance engagement and long distance dating for a long time. And so one of the ways we connected was that. But what's really cool is, like, at first he was kind of like, okay, you know, like, this is cool. Like, but then he got really into it, and it was really neat. We would send things back and forth, you know, in the mail to each other, and we'd be very excited.
I don't like cards, but I like to make stuff.
Yeah.
And so I know that these intentional things are important for her. So I would just start making her all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, she's gonna love this.
And I have a box too.
She does.
So I think it.
You have
She has a
I made her a
box.
box, Matt.
He did. He
Well, I
made
ain't
me,
making
and he didn't
a-
even just make me a box, guys. He made me a chest.
I did.
You know, like
Because it's stupid chest. I'm like, okay, just like make this thing. But I did. I made her a chest to keep all these things that she loves to keep, that I know are important to her. And part of that, I think, is that humility of recognizing other people's strengths, and then that willingness and that desire. That, I think, it does grow over time. Because I used to be a terrible gift giver. She's an amazing gift giver to other people and to me, but I would always get her what I wanted to give her rather than what she really wanted.
Yeah.
And over time, I've become a much better gift giver for you. But that process of dying to oneself and really living for the benefit of others, I think, is the basis for healthy relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the basis for healthy marriages. And it's the context of our relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And so whether you want a healthy marriage or you want a healthy relationship, maybe you've been listening to these last two episodes, and I think the basis of marriage is to give you a reflection of the relationship that Jesus Christ has with his body, with the church. And that's sacrifice.
Right.
Sacrifice, service, humility. And in doing that, and if you would walk in that way, then you will have healthy relationships. And it's also the pathway to restore relationships. So I think this has been a really great last 2 episodes with talking about marriage. We're going to have one more. So we invite you guys back we're going to have our special guest Sabrina back with us. It's been great having you on these last 2 episodes. It's been fun listening to you. I should have known that the chest story was going to make its way. It makes its way into it. But we've just been enjoying this time. You can reach out to us with your questions, info@alm.tv. Again, post your comments. We want to hit your questions. Maybe if you got questions about marriage, relationships, we'd love to hit them in this next episode. Let me just pray for people, as we've been unpacking some of these things. Pray over your marriage, maybe over your future marriage, or the restoration of your relationships. Lord, we thank you that you came into our lives to restore our relationship with God, and through that, you restore our relationship with others. God, if there are people here who are listening to this and watching this, and they need restoration in relationships, I know that you are the answer to that process, and you're the beginning of that process. And so, Father, I ask you that you would come into their life fresh and anew, that you would fill them with love, that you would restore their relationship with you, and in that you would begin the restoration process with those around them. Father, if people are struggling in their marriages, we lift their marriages up to you right now. We ask that you would bring the right guides into their relationships. Father, that you would speak to them, that you would show them and reveal to them the changes and the adjustments that they can make right now that can bring restoration and life into their marriages. For those, Lord, that are looking forward to marriage, we ask that you would give them a firm foundation. Bring them to your word, that you would guide them about your principles for marriage. Lord, we thank you for our marriages, and we ask that you would watch over them, continue to guide us in our relationships to you and our relationship to one another. We thank you for it. In your precious name, amen.
Amen.